Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kellyanne Boyce, and I proudly serve as president of the Chautauqua Women's Club. Welcome to our Contemporary Issues Forum Lecture, or CIF for short. We have a wonderful speaker lineup this summer. I hope you will join us here every Saturday at 3 p.m. through August 17th. I cannot believe it's week 4 already. Next Saturday, July 20th, we are excited to welcome a Chautauquan, Sarah Gamble. Sarah's talk will focus on environmental activism, opportunities for architects and the public to engage in the climate crisis. Sarah is a distinguished architect and educator known for her dedication to the public realm and community-oriented projects. She is an assistant professor at the University of Florida School of Architecture, teaching graduate and undergraduate students. So don't miss this timely talk. The Chautauqua Women's Club is a vibrant organization with a rich history. For 135 years, we've empowered the community through education, leadership opportunities, and life-changing scholarships for students. This summer, we proudly gave $40,000 to Chautauqua Institution, bringing our total over $1.8 million in scholarships to students in the schools of performing and visual arts. But what we do best is provide you with opportunities to meet new people, build lifelong friendships, and be part of a welcoming community. This is why the Women's Club is known as the heartbeat of Chautauqua. If you are a member, we thank you and encourage you to get involved. Volunteering is the easiest way to meet new friends. If you're not yet a member, please consider joining. We have a membership table over there, and Hope and Susan, I think, is over there. You can also go onto our website or just stop by the house next to the Athenaeum Hotel. We are incredibly grateful to the 2024 program sponsors for their generous support and belief in our exceptional programming. Your support, the community's support, helps us bring relevant, thought-provoking speakers and some of the best programming to the grounds of Chautauqua. If you want to learn more about sponsorship opportunities, you can email me at president@chautauquawomensclub.org. Our 2024 program sponsors are Sherry Gillette Sigward, Lauren Rich Fine of Greece Financial, Terry Tucker and Stephen Still, McGee Women's Research Institute, and in memory of our dear Rita Arjun Auerbach, lovingly gifted by Kathy Bonner, Mary Lou Goodman, and Josette Raleigh for Rita's dedication to the Chautauqua community and her love for the Women's Club. Today, Sylvia Farbstein will talk for approximately 45 minutes, followed by 15 minutes or so of Q&A. After her talk, please queue up to one of the 2 mics right here. We highly encourage you to ask questions, including the folks on the lawn, which will be counted today. But to keep our Q&A moving, please keep your questions concise with no Chautauqua prelude. Today's lecture is being videotaped by Ed Tomasini, which includes the Q&A session. If you don't want to be videotaped, please refrain from asking a question. But when you do ask a question, please step to the microphone and speak about 1 inch away so the audio can be recorded properly. I want to thank Leslie Strickler, right here, for introducing Sylvia to the Women's Club. Speaker recommendations help us bring the best of the best to Chautauqua, so thank you. I hope you all had a chance to read Sylvia's article in today's Daily. Is Deb Treffs here? She's usually here. Where's Deb? Okay, but Deb does our wonderful, she covers the Women's Club, and she did a great job in the article in the Daily. Today, Sylvia will inspire you to view uncertainty with curiosity and harness life's inevitable twists as catalysts for profound and exciting change. Sylvia is a testament to the transformative power of a growth mindset in the face of life's unpredictable challenges. Her talk, How to Embrace Uncertainty in All Seasons of Life, a journey of shattering barriers into boundless opportunities, will illuminate the journey from upheaval to rebirth. Sylvia's transition from the structured world of private banking to navigating the unknown of her son, Brandon, who was diagnosed with a rare form of dwarfism, reshaped her entire perspective. She will share how they broke free from societal limitations, leading to a successful entrepreneurial path that has touched millions. With Brandon now a celebrated speaker and Gen Z activist, their story is one of refusing to be confined or defined by adversity. Sylvia helped Brandon launch his professional speaking career when he was 17 years old. She advocated for anti-bullying legislation at the Virginia General Assembly and collaborated on Brandon's 2 books, 10 Feet Tall and a kid's book about self-love. And she will be signing his book, a kid's book about self-love, after the talk. She has advised hundreds of families how to turn obstacles into opportunities. She proudly works as Brandon's momager as they spread his universal message to elevate global empathy. Most recently, Sylvia contributed to the new book, 100 Diverse Voices on Parenthood, with her message of combating comparison. She strongly believes in honoring our children for their uniqueness rather than focusing how they compare to others, including siblings. Sylvia is here with her husband, Steve, and friends, and I know that you have embraced, both of you have embraced Chautauqua and have already said you're returning next year, so welcome. Sylvia, on behalf of the Chautauqua Women's Club and the entire Chautauqua community, we are honored to have you with us. Let's give a warm Chautauqua welcome to Sylvia Farbstein.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the lovely introduction, Kelly, and I am so honored and humbled to be here with you today. I absolutely love Chautauqua, and how can we not, right? If you think about it, there are few things in life that are as certain as the ever-present exposure to uncertainty. Like some of you, my awareness of the need to manage uncertainty began at an early age. As an immigrant who moved from Russia to Israel, and then at the age of 5, from Israel to the United States, I just wanted to fit in and be like everybody else, to have a sense of belonging. We all want to feel safe. It isn't a surprise to realize that when you are in unfamiliar and new places other than Chautauqua, it can be stressful. It's as if you have no control. You don't know what to expect, and you may not feel as protected as you would in a place that you are used to. As a young NYU grad, managing uncertainty would be the cornerstone of my profession. I was a private banker working at 30 Rockefeller Plaza in New York City on the 61st floor. My career entailed analyzing the credit of our entrepreneurial clients. I took pride in mitigating risk and making sure the numbers painted a picture of clarity. I would leave the office each day with a sense of routine and predictability. My clients, however, enjoyed a life of unknown outcomes and the thrill of being the first in their profession to embrace unique real estate endeavors. I was just fine having the same path back and forth to the office from my apartment. Heck, I even walked the same streets day in and day out during my daily commute. Looking back, I suppose my need for uncertainty, my need for predictability from the uncertainty came from the fact that I craved it as a young child. That said, on October 29th, 1993, I made a simple decision that would forever change my life. It was the end of day on a Friday night, and rather than go downstairs and meet my friends for happy hour, on this night, I left my office, walked over to the elevator, and pushed the up button. I was on my way to meet a blind date. I took a chance that Friday night when I left work. I chose not to interpret the unknown with a dreaded sense of what can go wrong. I stepped out of my comfort zone and pushed the up button. More on that story later. Sometimes it is just one little decision that puts us on a completely new path. In truth, we all experience uncertainty from the moment we take our first breath. Everyone in this room and out there dealt with it collectively, right? Beginning in March of 2020. And though the pandemic may have ended, the uncertainty in our world is more abundant than ever. So, given that uncertainty is constant, why is it that some appear to handle it more easily than others? How do some people have the confidence, grit, and courage to effectively deal with what life throws their way? They seem to thrive in spite of, or perhaps it's because of, the constant barrage of unknown. Might uncertainty help us to show up differently? What if we had a process and approach to manage the inevitable uncertainty that life brings? And what if that approach empowered us with perspective that can serve us in a multitude of ways as our life evolves? While I am not a trained professional or a researcher, my lived experience has served me and my family very well as we learn to sail through uncharted waters. Life has taught us key lessons in managing uncertainty and all of the challenges that it brings. Today, it is my privilege to share them with you in the time that we have together. Let me take you back when it all began for me. 22 years ago, I took my youngest child, Brandon, on his 2-year checkup. I had a normal pregnancy and birth. The pediatrician was quite familiar with our family as Brandon's older sister, Brooke, had been his patient for the last 4 years. He breezed through the routine exam and said, "Brandon looks great." But my gut told me otherwise. It seemed as if I needed to lean into my intuition. I didn't let the certainty of this doctor lead me to something that didn't feel right within me. I explained to him that at this age, Brooke was frequently changing clothing sizes, and it seemed that Brandon's torso was lengthening, but his limbs were shorter. Right away, upon closer examination, the doctor agreed. I could see by his expression and demeanor, he went from calm to concerned. He sent us to a geneticist. This wasn't just any geneticist. She was renowned, and there was a long waiting list to see her. We got in to see her the very next day. Upon examining Brandon, she quickly referred us to the hospital for a full skeletal x-ray. Uncertainty was the operative word for the local medical professionals who reviewed these x-rays. They knew they were looking at something different, they just didn't know what to make of it. So they sent the images off to the UCLA Skeletal Dysplasia Registry, where it took them 6 months to diagnose our child. The dreaded wait was unbearable. Maybe you can relate to this feeling of uncertainty and the anxiety that comes with it. The lack of diagnosis felt like we were frustrated and helpless. I can vividly recall when our pediatrician called me soon after we received the diagnosis. He said, "Sylvia, I just need you to know that Brandon is going to be who he was born to be. This condition does not change that." I wasn't quite sure what Dr. Terry meant at the time. Although looking back, I realized he was trying to tell me that I should let Brandon grow into his unique self without putting any limits on who he can be, not letting a scary medical condition alter who he is. But it wasn't easy to think about the future. You see, Brandon was diagnosed with metatropic dysplasia. It is one of 400 different types of dwarfism. This particular condition is so rare, in fact, that there have been less than 100 cases reported in medical history. My husband Steve and I weren't sure how to react to this news. We just wanted to understand what it meant for Brandon's life and his future. The medical world couldn't tell us. They had no answers. While they felt that Brandon's condition was mild, all they could share with us at the time were black and white photos from outdated medical journals showing patients with severe deformities. This was before social media, before online communities. Even search engines were in their infancy. We felt like we were placed on an island where no one had gone through this and no one could tell us what to do. We lacked guidance and support. Perhaps you have been in our shoes. Have you ever experienced an unexpected bit of news that derails how you envisioned your future? It can be a health development, a work-related shakeup, or even a relationship ending. We can experience a slew of emotions that range from feeling unequipped, ill-prepared, panicky, overwhelmed, sad, frustrated, angry. And we can question, why me? What did I do to deserve this? Where do I go from here? It is understandable to get consumed by the grief and feel helpless when our world suddenly feels out of control. We may get so used to having a plan or making a plan that we simply feel lost without one. But we also have another choice, and that is to let go. Let go of preconceived expectations and outcomes. Forget trying to make sense of everything too soon. It is okay to not have all the answers or know how things will work out. In truth, we can't always control what life throws at us, but we can be in the driver's seat when it comes to how we react and respond. A byproduct of this approach is that life can actually be more interesting and textured when we let it naturally unfold. We can endure the difficulties without avoiding the mess. Imagine how different it would be if we flipped the script of adversity and from it create opportunity. After receiving Brandon's diagnosis, Steve and I had a decision to make. Are we going to surround our son with gloomy, fear-based bumper guards as we attempt to protect him from the world, or do we lean into his unknown future and help him prepare with what he needs to live his best life and make it a productive one? We chose what we knew. Just like with our daughter, Brooke, we decided to give Brandon the tools he needed to keep moving forward. So, how do you raise a child whose final height is 3'9" tall, the average height of a 6-year-old? We knew one thing for sure. Brandon would face struggles that we had no idea how to handle. We needed to change our perspective, to see the world through his eyes, both literally and figuratively. We certainly made lots of mistakes along the way, and how could we not? We weren't given a manual. It's interesting how initially, as parents, we thought we needed to have everything figured out. But if you think about it, most of us just try to do the best we can. And in reality, very few of us can say we have it all figured out. As the years went on, we realized the best way to move forward was to reframe the uncertainty. Who better to see through Brandon's eyes than Brandon himself? We let him take the lead. As a preschooler one day, he was looking in a full-length mirror, and he asked me, "Why am I so much smaller than the other kids?" I hadn't prepared what to say. I just spoke from the heart and explained to him that he had special bones that grow in their own unique way. When presented with questions or concerns in the midst of uncertainty, I believe the most important thing is to meet people where they are. Ignoring Brandon's question by saying something like, "Well, God just made you this way," would not have acknowledged the issue. Using words to normalize what he was seeing promoted self-acceptance. He embraced the reality of what is, rather than letting the unknown form a false narrative filled with negativity. Yet ours was not an easy journey. We needed to fight with the health insurance company on multiple occasions when they denied our claim to go to Johns Hopkins for Brandon's 2 major leg surgeries. They felt we had doctors in Richmond, Virginia, who could perform the operation. It involved putting metal hardware in Brandon's legs in order to straighten them as they grew. But did those doctors ever operate on a patient with metatropic dysplasia? Brandon was not going to be there first as far as this mama warrior was concerned. The appeal process was lengthy, and we even needed to get an attorney involved. Looking back, I realized my success in getting their initial decision overturned was to demonstrate to them the uncertainty of having a non-experienced surgeon perform the operation. Uncertainty can actually play in our favor when we use it in negotiating a particular outcome. By the age of 8, when it came time for Brandon's second leg surgery, he saw how much advocating, arguing, and relentless follow-up it took to get the insurance company to cover the procedure. He realized that no did not have to mean no, but it meant not yet. We can reframe rejection as redirection as we continue to seek resolution. Uncertainty drove us to speak up and speak out and even fight for the most wonderful medical care. Brandon's early days in school provided loads of lessons, most of which were not in the curriculum. While his elementary school principal took pride in informing parents they need to encourage their children to be on the gifted or advanced track, I chose not to see this as the only path for progress. I often wonder how many students would be better served if greater emphasis was placed on curiosity and lifelong learning rather than a narrow path of achieving top-tier grades and performance. Developing an open-minded, critical thinker would be even more beneficial if we could provide students with the tools that they need to look for uncommon solutions. While others were worried about school supplies, Our concerns centered around whether Brandon could reach the doorknobs, the lunch trays, use the bathroom, even lift his backpack. That is when we really started seeing things through his eyes. He was functioning in a world not built for someone of his stature. And yet, we had no idea what mental and emotional pain Brandon had been experiencing until he came home from school one day. He was 11 years old when he told me he no longer wanted to live. He hated being so different and felt like his life had no purpose. At that age, it is normal for kids to compare themselves to others, and Brandon felt like he never seemed to measure up. He marched upstairs to his room, slammed the door, and grabbed a belt. Thankfully, I was seconds away from him. That moment was a desperate cry for help. He wanted the pain to end. It was then that we assisted him in starting his journey with therapists and counseling. As he worked on healing, the weight of the world slowly started to lift. I realized how critical it is to engage mental health professionals to help during challenging times, especially when our children are going through adversity that we may not be familiar with. Creating an A-team of trusted professionals, mentors, and supporters outside of our family was imperative. Together, we learned the only thing we could control was our mindset. How we react to what life brings our way is entirely up to us. When we face significant uncertainty by way of diagnosis or life circumstance, the urge to project into the future or focus on the past can create emotional overload. However, accepting what is creates a framework for the present. It allows us to approach the situation with a clearer, calmer mind. Think about it. By tackling what is in front of you right now, you ultimately feel more equipped and empowered to move forward. While working on his inner world, Brandon's bones continued to grow in their own unique way. Eventually, it was time for him to start thinking about using a mobility device to alleviate the significant leg pain. He felt empowered to question the options presented to him by his orthopedic surgeon: a wheelchair or a motorized scooter. He told the doctor neither option would work. He said, "My legs function. Why would I use something that doesn't use my legs? And also, using a wheelchair or motorized scooter would put him physically lower, thereby forcing him to look up at the world more than he already was doing." So Brandon came up with the idea of using an unconventional device as his mobility, a Segway. There was a lot of uncertainty about this option, given that a traditional Segway was bulky and heavy and cost prohibitive. However, my husband Steve and I, along with the doctor, encouraged Brandon to do the research and give it a try. We further gave him ownership by asking him and challenging him to raise money to purchase the device. He created a Facebook campaign before there even was such a thing, by designing his own magnets and selling them. Having a voice and agency transforms uncertainty into opportunity. It creates space for an endless amount of possibilities and brainstorming to take place. As fate would have it, I was at a promotional products trade show, and one of the exhibitors was showcasing what looked like a mini Segway. While it was being marketed as a recreational toy for wealthy people, I excitedly shared Brandon's story with him. My hope was for him to see that there's an untapped market out there. He thought I was crazy. Nope, we were just first. Just because things have never been done that way doesn't mean they cannot be done. Being flexible and adaptable lessens the load of tackling the unknown. Uncertainty can lead us to be resourceful and innovate our own solutions in new ways. Brandon was riding this Segway at the Richmond, Virginia airport a few months later when we were on our way to Florida for a family visit. At the TSA line, a woman started talking to him, and that very conversation changed the trajectory of our son's life. Rather than ignore this friendly stranger, Brandon engaged in conversation. The airport stranger turned out to be one of the first people in the world to put on a TEDx conference. Months later, at the age of 15, Brandon was a speaker on that iconic red circle. You never know how a conversation can be the very thing that can change someone's life. Rather than worry about saying the wrong thing, stare, or not approach Brandon altogether, this woman had the courage to say hello. What a powerful lesson this has been for our family. Uncertainty can be a catalyst for curiosity and connection. While staying in our comfort zone may be the easier thing, think about the magic that may get lost in missed connections. After Brandon gave his TED Talk, it seemed like life was going his way until he got hit with another curveball. His conventional high school career abruptly ended due to cyberbullying. The vicious and cruel comments from his classmates became unbearable. With our support, he made the decision to leave that high school and continue his education online. He felt so isolated and beaten down by what became his internal, hate-filled sense of self. The death threats and anti-Semitic comments were horrific. And yet, we learned at the time that our laws did not protect victims as much as they protected free speech. So we decided to take action, and we got to work. The antidote to feeling low and alone is to find purpose and make a difference along the way. When our plight aligns with our why, it brings in much needed light. We figured out a way that we could help others in their journey with uncertainty and challenges. Together, before his 18th birthday, Brandon and I testified in front of the Virginia General Assembly. We helped bring forth 2 new laws aimed at bullying prevention and teaching social and emotional learning. We saw the power of using our voices in the service of others as we transformed pain into purpose. Had we not taken the chance and been given the opportunity to testify, current students in Virginia public schools may not be learning about empathy and healthy coping strategies. In the wake of uncertainty, we can explore new approaches and make a difference, and in the process, even discover our own purpose. Brandon eventually grew incredibly tired of feeling so depleted, and he discovered the world of personal development. Though therapy had saved him in many ways, for him it lacked the tactical tools to better navigate his tumultuous life. Personal growth was the catalyst we both needed to design a purpose-driven journey. It was another random encounter with a stranger that led us to be guests of Tony Robbins. We were at Unleash the Power Within, and along with 10,000 fellow attendees, we successfully became firewalkers. Yes, we walked on fire. This was the first of many events and personal investments we made towards better understanding the human journey and learning how to optimize our mindset in dealing with the unknown. It changed how I saw myself, and I became better equipped as a mother, wife, sister, friend, and community advocate. As Brandon and I say many times, it is when we shift the lens through which we see ourselves that the world around us shifts. Uncertainty can lead to shared experiences, which in turn build stronger bonds. Surrounding ourselves with people who are on a path to learn more about themselves showed us how satisfying it is to have a growth mindset no matter our age or stage in life. Prior to this, the stress of having Brandon leave high school was coupled with my anxiety of having him no longer on a predictable path. My uncertainty took me on a wild ride into the future, and I ended up with a very painful bout of shingles. What helped me through those days of feeling alone was creating a supportive tribe of individuals who made it their mission to be there for us both in various ways. I will forever be grateful to the friend who facilitated Brandon writing his first book. All she did was invite him to co-working spaces and coffee shops with his laptop. We need people who believe in us, especially during times when our sense of self feels shattered. I've since found ways to keep my anxiety at bay by learning various modalities, including meditation, gratitude practices, and just being out in nature. Finding moments of awe during my sunset walks remind me of the sense of renewal at the end of each day. It also provides an opportunity to pause, breathe, and reflect, allowing our nervous system to recharge and reset. Our collective plunge into wellness and personal development triggered a quest for deeper learning, and I know this will be a lifetime of inner work. What was special was being on a parallel journey together, with Brandon seeing my excitement and enthusiasm alongside his. And remember that stranger at the airport? Well, she went on to encourage us to attend the National Speakers Association annual conference when Brandon was 17 years old. On day 2 of that conference, he turned to me and said, "These are my people. This is the profession that I want to enter. And can I hire you as my manager?" We did not let the uncertainty of him being too young, inexperienced, or unseasoned stand in the way of Brandon and I learning the speaking profession from the ground up. If we were to wait for an invitation to a seat at that table, we would probably still be waiting. It is now 7 years since, literally this week, 7 years. And during COVID, when uncertainty took over our lives, Brandon wrote his most meaningful work, a kid's book about self-love. This book equips us with so many tools, and it encourages youth to celebrate their uniqueness as their superpower. There are so many golden nuggets inside. I would like to share a couple of pages with you. Self-love is learning to love who you are. Self-love is becoming comfortable with who you are. It is developing a sense of gratitude for yourself. Self-love is being your own biggest cheerleader. It is knowing your worth. Self-love is knowing you have value and gifts no matter what. And this page is one of my ultimate favorites. Remember, you are not your grades. You are not your performance. You are not what you do. You are who you are. Thank you. While this book is written for kids ages 5 and up, the universal messaging inside is so relevant no matter how old or how young we are. We strongly believe in this self-love project as a potential solution. Teaching young people to love who they are, how they are, as they are, is a direct way to reduce bullying. Imagine what a difference it can make to combat hate starting at a young age. When you believe in yourself, it provides a pathway to more effectively deal with the uncertainty that is thrown your way. Brandon's overarching mission is to elevate empathy. He went from hating who he was to learning to love himself. With this solid foundation, he teaches people how to help themselves and others feel valued. It all begins with celebrating our uniqueness and embracing our differences. Empathy is the pathway to becoming the greatest version of who we are. Empathy towards ourselves is the cornerstone needed to use what we have been given and be of utmost service to the world. Fundamentally, without empathy, we cannot fully show up for those around us or even communicate in a proper way. It enhances our leadership abilities. It helps to build community and can even spark creativity. Just last month, Brandon spoke at his largest corporate event yet. He was in front of 7,500 international, professional, financial, and insurance people. They were from over 50 countries. His talk was translated into 10 languages. It sure is fulfilling to see how his success is due to him never losing sight of what is possible. And what a universal message that is. Increasing our capacity for uncertainty has brought us to new territory that we constantly need to navigate. We launched Brandon's career despite the unknown, with an open mind, an open heart, and the will to help others expand how they see themselves and, in turn, how they see the world around them. I continue to work alongside my son as his chief of staff, or also affectionately known as Momager. When I began my talk, I mentioned how my decision to take the elevator up changed the direction of my life. Now for the rest of the story. The man I was set up with that night was my husband, Steve, and I turned out to be his 95th blind date. Yes, 95. We were engaged 4 months later at that very Rainbow Room where we had our first date, and wed 11 months after our initial meeting. So I went from number 95 to number 1 in less than a year. In October, we will be celebrating our 30th wedding anniversary. And thank you. And it will remind me once again how saying yes to uncertainty can be empowering and lead us to places and spaces we never dreamed of. My invitation to you is to take a plunge into the zone of the unknown. Yes, our brain may love predictability, but what rewards there are when we approach uncertainty not as chaos, but instead as a road to freedom. It can be the beginning of a new story, the chance to learn, the catalyst to stretch, grow, and expand our toolkit. We have weathered storms, strengthened our resilience, and innovated solutions for a larger life full of impact with countless meaningful connections along the way. I gave birth to a child whose physical stature was limited. But in the process, I discovered that our inner growth has no bounds. Perhaps it is uncertainty that helps us find our way. Thank you so much. Thank you. It would be my absolute pleasure to have a conversation, so please don't be shy. Let uncertainty lead the way and come up to the mic and ask your questions.
Hope I don't break it. Good afternoon. Thank you. That was very inspirational. Really appreciate you being here. I'm Ahmed. I'm the Chief Diversity and Accessibility Officer at the institution. So I was really inspired by the story you told about the woman who took a chance at the airport and started having a conversation. One of the challenges I find is sometimes people just don't know how to interact with people who are different or people with disabilities on one extreme, so they just avoid because maybe they don't want to say or do the wrong thing. And on the other end of the extreme is the only thing they can talk about is the difference, right? So what advice would you have for people who want to start a conversation? What's an appropriate way to start a conversation that doesn't focus on the difference and the fear doesn't keep us away from starting a conversation?
First of all, I love that question, and thank you so much for asking it. Do you really want to know the secret to approaching a person with a disability? You literally just have to say hello. You don't have to ask them, what is your condition? What is your disability? Why don't you just ask them, what's your name? We all love hearing our name. If we treat humans as humans, disability or not will not stand in our way. And you're absolutely right. So many people feel intimidated, afraid. There's no wrong way to say hello. There's no wrong way to smile. There's no wrong way to say, what's your name? Or introduce yourself and use your name first. People are people. And the other thing I will say, if you've ever met with a person who has a disability, you've met one person who has a disability. We cannot lump them all into a conglomerate of people who have disabilities. They're all different. When it comes to my son, Brandon, at the age of 24, he's really comfortable with the word disability. He doesn't mind people saying he has a disability. But he always emphasizes that we need to use people-first language. That means when you refer to Brandon or your friend who has autism, don't say, oh, yeah, that's Bill, the autistic kid. You can say, Bill, my friend who has autism. That is people-first language. And that way, we see them first as a human and not as a condition. I hope that helps.
So Sylvia, as an old acquaintance in Richmond, You've done a good job in Virginia. Is Brandon or you interested in doing this on a national level? Have you considered doing that? Because there are states like where I live in Florida now that don't have compassion, at least in government circles. They don't have empathy, and they have a lot of othering. So have you thought about making this a more national program?
We would absolutely love the opportunity to do that. It's just a question of finding the right constituents and people to collaborate with. We are very much into solutions-oriented work and collaborative work, but the question is, we need to connect with the right people. So we're always open to doing that. We just don't know how to find them.
Gotcha.
But I agree, it should be on a multi-state level and a national level.
Thank you for a lesson in meditation and mindfulness that you just gave us. And I think the Chinese word for crisis is also a Chinese word for opportunity. And
I love that.
You've embodied that. Thank you.
Thank you for teaching us that. That's great.
Hi, thank you so much for that inspiring talk. I work with people with autism, so I'm happy that you said when you've met one, you've met one.
Right.
I realize that, as you said, that Brandon's condition is rare. Has he met any other people with this condition, and what do you foresee for him socially in the future?
Great question. So we had the opportunity to start attending the Little People of America conferences when Brandon was 8 years old. And if I could have just captured his face when we walked into the venue for the first time, it literally was the first time in his life when he realized he was not the only one. And when I mentioned there are hundreds of different types of dwarfism, there really are, and there are people that are significantly smaller than our son, and there are others that are wheelchair-bound or have trachs, and so many different conditions, and the severity of conditions are out there. So a big lesson that we learned was the importance of being in community and being with people who totally get what you're going through without you having to explain everything is so important. So he created a lot of friendships with different people in Little People of America. We also found out that there was a Facebook page, and this is the beauty of social media. On the one hand, it could have killed my son, but on the other hand, it is connecting us to groups and spaces that we don't even know exist. And so there was a group that was created by a handful of those who have a family member with metatropic dysplasia. And I think to date he has met maybe about 15 to 20 of them. So it's been a great opportunity. And those that we haven't met in person, we're able to connect with because they truly are all over the world. In terms of socially, it's an interesting question because Brandon was born an old soul. He started saying words when he was young, but then went on to paragraphs. So he really wasn't into simple conversations, and he would absolutely love Chautauqua. And the fact that there's a DEI person at Chautauqua, I mean, it is beautiful to see so many people that are not just interesting, but are interested in others. And so in his mind, social relationships don't need to be confined by only people his age. He does have many friends his age, but he also loves the idea of being in spaces where people are solutions-oriented and aren't just complaining about the world, but figuring out ways to change the world. So for me, with either of my kids, Brandon is 24, his sister Brooke is 27, she's of normal stature. I don't put any time requirements on them. I want them to enjoy life and evolve into who they are. And if they have a partner, eventually to enjoy life with that partner, but I will never be the type of mom who says, well, when is this going to happen? because I have seen that life unfolds in so many unpredictable ways. So I definitely have hope that he will find someone special. And I also must say I've met many couples that one of the spouses may be a little person and the other is average height. So I don't think his world is going to be confined in one way or another. But thank you for asking that question. Anyone else? My friend from Indiana. Good to see you.
Sylvia, can you talk about the genetic part of it? Like,
Sure.
if he has offspring, could he have a,
So Brandon's condition the gene was finally discovered at Cedars-Sinai Hospital. A very renowned geneticist discovered the gene, and I know that they are working on ways of isolating it. So, maybe if he decides, should he decide to have a child, it may be possible with medical technology to be able to isolate that gene. But in our case, as I said, it was a normal pregnancy and birth, and at age 2, I realized that life had a slight change of plans for us. So none of us are immune to these surprises, and we all may have genetic mutations. Those of us that remember high school biology, we learned about them. And it happens. It's rare, but the more people I meet, the more you realize that others have things going on as well. Anyone else?
It's not a question,
Okay.
but it's more of a comment. So I actually have a second job at the resource center, and it's not a job I expected to get myself into, but I love it. I've been there for 9 years, on and off 9 years. I've been trying other healthcare facilities, and I just love working with these individuals. Every single one of them. They come and go, obviously, and we get a new individual, and it's a little bit scary because you don't know what to expect. But as soon as you're with them for like a minute, you just love them. You don't even know them, and you just love them already. And that's just, it's just a grateful thing to be into. So I just encourage everybody, just, talk to them as you want to talk to your family.
I love
Talk
that.
to them as you want to talk to your friends. They're wonderful people.
Thank you.
we need more people like you.
Yes. Hi.
Thank you so very much. You talked about the things in your toolkit, meditation and things like that. Is your faith part of the tools in your toolkit? Just curious.
Yes, we practice Judaism, and we definitely have a foundation of solid values, rituals, beliefs, and it just makes us realize that life cannot be controlled. I appreciate you asking that question because it gives me an opportunity to share with you that we personally know one of the hostages that is being held captive in Gaza. He is an American Israeli. He lived in Richmond, Virginia for several years and went to preschool with our son. And I look to his mother for her strength. Her name is Rachel Goldberg, and his name is Hirsch Goldberg Poland. And this mom, in the face of the most horrific trauma, still gets up every morning and posts videos on social media and gives talks, and it is because of her strong sense of faith. And I feel like no matter our faith, we need to embrace some sense of foundation that gives us strength to understand the unexplainable. So I very much appreciate you asking. Hi.
Hi. You mentioned that you and Brandon arranged for some curriculum to be developed over compassion. Is that curriculum, could that curriculum be shared with other states? And I'm from Canada, from us too.
I would hope so. You're from Canada?
Yes.
Actually, we just came back from Canada twice in the last few months. He gave a talk in Banff for the Alberta Teachers Association, and that literally attracted educators from all over the world. And we just gave a talk in Vancouver. So we love Canada. I would love to say yes, but I tell you, I'm having a really hard time being able to locate the paperwork, the accountability, like share with us, how is it that this law has made a difference in your school system? Again, I think it's all about connecting with the right people, so we're trying to sort of unearth that, and once we do, I totally agree, when we leverage the work that we have already done, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. If it's working in Virginia, and I pray that it is, then why not share it with other states and other countries? So I hope, you never know who's sitting here might be connected to someone who knows someone, right, Leah? And so I hope that that will happen one day, but right now, I can't say that I have access to that information.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your inspiring talk.
Thank you.
Certainly disabilities are congenital, as with your son. Others are a result of trauma.
Yes.
I read this week that compared 2 zip codes in Boston, Roxbury and one in the Back Bay, there's a 26-year difference in life expectancy. 100% of the families in Roxbury have witnessed the impact of murders. And much of trauma, whether it's the trauma of the war in Gaza or the trauma of growing up in Roxbury versus the Back Bay, and I'm wondering if you have a message for sort of the acquired trauma and some of the major unfairness that occurs with racism and gender discrimination and sexism and things like that speak to the acquired in addition to the congenital. But it was a great talk. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. I feel that our experience actually touches on acquired trauma because the cyberbullying that my son went through was absolutely horrific. They took professional photos from his TEDx talk and literally altered them so he appeared to have these deformities, and they wrote the most horrific commentary about how he should have been murdered in the Holocaust. I mean, things that you can't even wrap your head around. And he definitely went through a significant amount of trauma, and for us, it really helped to embrace mental health professionals as much as we look to his medical doctors for his physical ailments. And so I think the key is to continue to shatter the stigma of asking for help and encouraging families to find appropriate trauma-informed therapists and not being afraid to speak to our children about these topics. And I also feel that Gen Z and the younger generations are so open in terms of their transparency and vulnerability that they are no longer hiding that they're seeking counseling. Many loudly and proudly share that they are going for help on a regular basis. So I feel like it is our job to try to normalize the fact that we are going to be hit with unexpected boulders and obstacles in life that may traumatize us, and we need to talk to people that can help us seek out the right type of trauma-informed therapy and professionals. Wonderful. Well, thank you all so much again. Thank you. I would love the opportunity if you would like to support Brandon and his book and give it to someone that you may love, or a library or a school system. I will meet you at the table right there, and we'll be happy to sign the book and have a conversation. Thank you.